Hi everybody, Steve here in the city of San Bruno, about 15 minutes south of San Francisco, and I'm here at San Francisco National Cemetery. And if life isn't strange enough when you're alive, it continues to be strange even after you're gone. All you have to do is visit a cemetery, almost any time, to see what I mean. There's always something weird or bizarre or just crazy happening in the cemeteries. I don't know, at least I seem to find those things in cemeteries. But this morning I just discovered something that's just, for me, it seems really ironic. Actor Percy Kilbride, who played Pa on Ma and Pa Kettle. Remember the Ma and Pa Kettle movies? Way back in the day before I was born, but they've been in reruns for decades. And so I grew up watching Ma and Pa Kettle movies. Very funny. And I recently discovered that he lived to be 76 years old, and the other weird thing is no matter where I go in the cemetery, somebody with a weed whacker finds me. Now, I know that's not unique to me. Every YouTuber who goes to the cemetery is stalked by a person with a weed whacker. It just kind of goes with the territory. I don't know. But Percy, apparently, I guess he used to walk with his good friend, his best friend, every morning. They would take a walk, and they lived in Hollywood. And one morning, crossing the street, he was hit and killed. I don't know if it was a hit and run accident or if the person stopped. I wasn't able to tell by the information that I read, but he was hit by a speeding driver and killed. So the irony to me is that he's buried here in this cemetery about 10 feet away from the freeway with speeding cars and trucks. I mean, you can almost reach out. It feels like you can just about reach out and touch them as they're going by. I mean, much closer than Gregory Peck's final resting place, which I visited recently and I shared with all of you. And I was surprised that he was buried so close to the freeway. In fact, I thought he was probably the only famous person buried next to a freeway. Now, he was probably 400 yards away, so he was still pretty close. But Percy Kilbride, I mean, he's right up against the freeway. So not that it matters. It's like, this is a beautiful cemetery, and every gravesite location is awesome. I mean, they're all really nice. And even by the freeway, personally, I don't mind noise. Not in my house where I live, but in cemeteries, I prefer cemeteries with a lot of activity, a lot of things going on, people visiting, cars going by, just noise. I like that. The really quiet, remote cemeteries out in the middle of nowhere, to me, always feel kind of spooky and creepy and lonely, more lonely than anything. So I like the cars going by. I think it's kind of fun. But boy, how weird is that? So do you think this is a coincidence that he's buried here right next to the speeding cars and that he was killed by a speeding car? Or is that just one of those cosmic jokes? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't Hollywood Boulevard. It was one street, I think it's just one street over. He was killed at the intersection of Cherokee and Yucca. Now, Cherokee, a block away, does cross Hollywood Boulevard, but Yucca, I think, is one street up, one street north of Hollywood Boulevard. Now, apparently he also had Alzheimer's, so I don't know what stage he was in. I'm guessing he wasn't too advanced, or I don't think he'd be out walking, but maybe he was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, and maybe that's why he had his friend walking with him to help him remember where he was going and how to get back to his home. Now, if I remember correctly, I think Mark Pedroza left me a comment about Percy Kilbride, asking me to visit his grave or letting me know that he's laid to rest here. I'll have to go back and look at that comment and see when he made the comment. I'm sure it was quite a long time ago, because I haven't been up here to the San Francisco area in at least a year, maybe 2 years. So thanks, Mark, for the suggestion. So the reason he's buried up here is that he was born here in San Francisco. He died in Hollywood on December 11th, 1964, but he's buried here where he was born, up here in the San Francisco area. If I recall, there were about 10 Ma and Pa Kettle movies. They're extremely popular, but he left after filming 8 of them and retired. They tried to continue and they made a couple of others, but without him it just wasn't the same, so the series came to an end after part 10. Do any of you also remember Ma and Pa Kettle? Share with us in the comments if you do. And how would you feel about being laid to rest this close to the freeway? By the way, this is Interstate 280, for those of you who are curious. This week I want to give a shout out and a very big thank you to my newest Patreon supporters, Deb Crutch, Connie Cabanella, Pat Pay, and Daphne King. Thank you, Deb, Connie, Pat, and Daphne, for your very, very generous donations to my channel. They really do mean a lot, and they definitely help make future trips like this possible. I also want to give a shout out to all of my new subscribers. Thank you all for taking the time to subscribe. That really means a lot too. So, until our next trip to the cemetery together, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.